John, do you have kids?
I do.
Are they musicians? Are they in the music industry at all?
No. The music gene jumped over them.
Good for them. No, I'm just kidding. It's a rough life.
It hit me and jumped over them.
So
Interesting story.
yeah.
I was adopted. See.
Okay.
And
really, so was
I couldn't. My adopted dad was a doctor, surgeon. My mother was a teacher. Now my dad happened to be a national champion rudimental snare drummer in high school.
Oh.
Rudimental, for those of you that don't know, kind of means a military march style playing. And he was a national champion when he was in high school. And I just picked up, he had a drum laying around the house, some sticks. I just picked it up. Anyway, then I went from violin to trumpet, but I always played drums.
I play trumpet too.
Yeah, went to college as a percussion major, and I was always curious as to where, this came from. Obviously, it had to come from one of my biological parents. And I spent 20 years trying to find my biological families. And I was very fortunate in 3 years ago, I had some help. We did through DNA. This helper found my biological mother's family. They were from Auburn, Indiana. And I have a bunch of cousins up in Auburn, Indiana.
Oh, wow.
It took another year to find my biological father's family. And I have a sister and another brother that I knew nothing about. Interestingly enough, my biological father was a jazz saxophone player.
Oh, wow.
And he played in several big bands. He played all the society things back in Binghamton, New York, where they had a nightclub. He was in the house band there, and they bring in floor shows and things like this. That's cool. That's where I get it from.
So what did he do when he found out that you had the career that?
My biological mother got killed in a car accident.
Oh, I see.
When I was a year old, and my biological father passed away in 1990, I believe.
I see. I was adopted as well, so I'm right there with you. I've never actually researched from my parents or anything though, but it's something that you were able to do that and find out who you are and as far as your
my brother was adopted too, and he doesn't care at all. He has no interest in finding out his biological background.
Yeah. Right. There's no mystery for him. He care less.
No, there isn't. But I also wanted to know medical history, things like that, to try to fill in some of those blanks for my kids.
That's amazing. That is amazing indeed.
So I have to ask then. So what do your kids do since they decided not to do the music route?
My daughter Jennifer is a cardiac intensive care nurse.
Oh, so she works in the medical field then. Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
She's in the medical field. My son works for Disney in Orlando.
Okay. Oh, okay. Which they are open, unlike our Disneyland on this end of this end of the country.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So I guess both are kind of like frontline, responders or whatever, like your daughter and then your son, because they're both with the public all day.
Well, my daughter actually got COVID.
How did that go for her?
She got a mild case of it.
Oh, good. That's good.
She said she had a couple of rough days where, with the fever and the headache and things like that, but nothing serious.
Have you seen her since this whole hot mess happened, or is it just like Zoom and phone calls?
No, I haven't seen her. We've decided that we're just going to stay away from each other. She's got 4 children.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And, she's trying to keep it down to, as little contact as possible. So, she sterilizes herself before she comes into the house.
I've heard of a lot of nurses doing that. They go in through the garage, they completely, undo all their clothes, go to the shower, And it's like this whole decontamination process before they actually interact with their family.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
The crazy thing that we're going through this time at these times and the whole bit.
It is. It is. I hope it's over soon.
Me too.
Yeah,
me too.
Seriously.
Let's talk a little bit about what we talked about yesterday, as also go a little bit of different direction here. We'll get back to the music area. We were talking about, Restless Heart, Alabama, Rascal Flatts, some of these guys that had bands for so long. A lot of record labels aren't signing bands now. We discussed that yesterday.
That's huge.
Yeah. I know that, we heard from Joe Galante. We heard through the grapevine that he didn't want to deal with 5 artists anymore in a band. They wanted to sign, give the band appearance, but only sign like the 2 main singers. Like Florida Georgia Line. There's 2 guys. They're not a band. They're 2 guys.
Right.
And so the record label only has to deal with them. And the same thing with Rascal Flatts. The 3 principals up front is Rascal Flatts.
Right.
And so on and so on. So I don't see a lot of bands out there in the last 10 years anyway that have been signed. They're presented as a band, but they're not really a band.
Maybe like Low Cash, maybe Osborne Brothers. How many people are in the Osborne Brothers? Like 3 in that band?
I don't know.
So it's a very small amount.
I think Low Cash is a band.
Yeah, Low Cash is a band, but
they've been a band for a long time.
But they were signed maybe 5-6 years ago, maybe.
I think so. Yeah.
So I don't know. It shows only 2 people there. It's a musical duo.
Oh, like Old Dominion. Old Dominion is a band.
Right. Low Cash is a musical duo, so they're not a band.
Oh, they're not. Okay.
No.
Well, there are some groups where this has been a thing for their entire careers. I mean, AC/DC, for example, is one that sticks out to me. They've damn near have had 30 people in the band over the years. And actually, if you Google it, Axl Rose was a member of AC/DC for a hot minute. Because he did some fill-ins because he could hit the vocals, So he was technically considered a band member doing lead vocals for, even though it was a quick minute. So I do see what you mean, where it's people are expendable unless they are the main core of that group.
Yeah.
And that's for newer, groups, like you have a rock band and there's 5 of you, like, maybe the lead singer and maybe the guitarist, if he's pretty amazing, will be the ones that get signed.
Yeah, that seems to be the trend.
And even though, you guys have been around like since 1984, you guys were all the original people for so long. I mean, you did have, Larry did leave, and then I know that you had back surgery, and Chris Golden filled in for you, who is a prominent drummer.
Yeah.
But Restless Heart is like one of the only bands around that really has been a band around. Even in Alabama, Mark Herndon and Randy Owen, all those guys had a disagreement over money. And unfortunately, Mark Herndon is no longer with Alabama, which makes me sad. Chuck Tipton played with the band Alabama for several years after that. He was a prominent drummer for those guys. And now he's doing solo work with So
Chuck Tilley was there for quite a while, too.
I mean, I'm sorry, I meant Chuck Tilley, not Chuck Tipton. Chuck Tilley, he's the guy. And so, it's kind of weird to see even Alabama now, basically the main 3. It's Teddy. Well, and of course, the guitar player, Jeff, he's gone because he has Parkinson's disease. And so it's really basically Teddy and Randy now.
Yeah. I think we figured out that Diamond Rio and Restless Heart were the only bands in country anyway that still had all of their original members all these years later.
Oh, wow.
And going on over into the rock field too, I can't mention another band off the top of my head that has their original people.
Well, before we started our second season, the last episode of our first season, we had Wang Chung, Cutting Crew, Flock of Seagulls, and Naked Eyes on, and I'm friends with John Poley, who is the drummer for the Naked Eyes, and he kind of helped us set that up. And none of those guys are the original members of the bands. They're all, they're all, but they still play and they still work and they do a lot of, But it's sad that I get that some members probably pass on since it's been the '80s or whatever the case is, and the '90s. But gosh, it's just sad to see that. I guess it's a business, like we've all realized behind, like we do as musicians. We realize that it's a business, and a lot of people don't see that. Who are just fans. They follow and they think that it's going to be the same, and there's always changes and always conflicts and personal conflicts and medical conflicts and so many things that happen to bands that make them change. And so it's maybe that's why record labels don't want to deal with that. I don't know. Maybe because of the personalities, where so many people are so.
Well, I think the country has changed to the point where you have this a lot of country / rap / rock.
Fill in the blank. You got it.
Yeah, and that really doesn't lend itself to a band very well. It lends itself better to a duo or a solo artist.
And the most things I've heard in country music these days is, you hear that in every song in country music nowadays.
Yeah, I don't know, John, if you've seen the YouTube video, but it's a producer that did like the 6 top country songs of like the last 7 or 8 years, and they mashed them all up together, all the different lyrics and words, and shows that it's all the same stuff. That as an artist or as a musician, that's got to kind of hurt that, hey, this is the business that I'm in, and that is what it's become.
Yeah, I just read it was posted on Facebook. It was by a record producer, and it just said in big bold letters, "I'd like to find the guy that invented the finger snaps and punch him right in the face."
Put that on a shirt.
Even now, at the Grand Ole Opry, I was there when Eddie Bears was showing the new piece of equipment that they have up on the drum riser now, where the drummer who's going to play with whatever artist is going to be on, or even the Opry drummer, if the artist they're backing has a song that has finger snaps in it, they have a finger snap machine up there now.
Wow,
that's Eddie
or Mark,
Eddie or Mark Beckett can just turn on. They could just hit a switch and get finger snaps.
So basically, you're I would say, you being around since 1980, well, even before 1984, but you're not a drummer who, and for those people who don't know, a click track is a metronome in a lot of songs that constantly goes on when you're recording a song to keep the beat even. Because in the early days, in the 60s and 70s and 50s, drummers and musicians in general have a tendency to speed up or slow down. There's never a straight. So they invented the click track, which causes drummers to be steady and keep the band steady and at even tempo. Now they do that a lot these days. A lot of live situations have a live. You can see people wearing in-ear monitors, and one side they have a click track, and the other side you can hear the music or whatever. Yep. But you don't do that, right? You guys, I saw you guys several years ago, and you guys were actually playing straight.
Yeah, well, of course, I always recorded with a click track.
Well, recording, but not playing.
Yeah, live. Now live, the opening song, if we have backing tracks, like we have backing tracks on a couple of songs on our show.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I have backing tracks, and I am the only one that gets the click. Nobody else does.
I see.
But I get the click, and that's so I need to stay with the backing track.
Right.
On both of those songs, so we only use it 2 songs.
I see. But so many bands are using it. A lot of bands are using the click tracks for everything now.
Right. Some artists just play what's on the album and just sing over it. I saw a lot of that on the New Year's Eve special. I was just like, they could literally go to the bathroom, and it's because there were live vocals, so it wasn't there wasn't actually traditional lip syncing. But I was just like, they could literally just leave the stage right now and come back, and people would still cheer for them. I thought that was fascinating to see that.
you know, the first time we did American Bandstand, the only thing that was live was the lead vocal. Everything else was tracked. So when we made a record, we had to, the engineers had to make television tracks of everything in case we went on TV. Now, the Tonight Show, you played live. That was it. They didn't play tracks. But a lot of shows, they would play tracks where only the lead vocal would be live. And you know, you might be interested in this, Kevin, how they approach the drums. I could hit the drums on American Bandstand and you know, hit the cymbals, because they figured out if you glue two of the same kind of cymbal together, it's dead. And so they just glued two cymbals together, like two 18-inch crashes, two ride cymbals, two hi-hat cymbals.
You have to go back and look at some of those old footage.
Of course, there was no bass drum pedal, and what they did was they cut out round white rubber discs to fit inside on top of the drum head.
Oh, wow.
That were snug enough so they won't pop out. You know, although all of a sudden the camera pans to me on American Bandstand as I'm knocking the white rubber pad off the mounted tom. You know, so
people are like, "Dang, he's going to town on the drums."
Yeah.
Didn't affect the sound at all. That little piece just fell off, but it still didn't affect the sound at all.
You know, it's funny because growing up, like I had the TRL days of MTV, you know, and like the boy bands and stuff. And if I go on YouTube now and I watch that stuff, I'm amazed at how much lip syncing and how much fake singing was happening on these television shows. But when you're growing up watching that, you're just like, oh my God, it's amazing every single time. And you don't know any difference, but it's an accepted practice that's been happening obviously for decades now.
Well, I know that every show we did back in the 80s, when we did most of them, we did Solid Gold and Dance Fever, and you know, we did all that stuff, and it was the same thing. Only the lead vocal was live.
I think the first time I noticed something's fishy was watching, I think I was about 22, took me a while, and it was watching the Macy's Day Parade, which everything is lip synced. And I thought to myself, oh, so that's a thing.
Well, I remember watching the Midnight Special with you know, and all the bands. I mean, I was a huge Casey and the Sunshine Band fan, you know. But every show you would watch them, and then at the end of the song would fade just like the record. They would never, you know, they never stopped solid. So you knew they were lip syncing there, you know. But people didn't realize it back then, you know. But now you look at it and hear the fade of the song, and they're kind of playing stuff a little softer,
You feel like do you feel like you cheat the audience when you do that, especially when it's a live audience? Like, man, we really could have done justice if they just let us.
I think it's to avoid things like what happened to Vince Gill on the Tonight Show. Apparently, Vince had an appearance way back when on Johnny Carson's show. Apparently, he screwed up the song so badly that they never let people redo songs. I mean, you know, never.
Oh yeah.
He screwed it up so badly, he just stopped. He stopped the band. He stopped and he said, "Please let me do this again." He said, I really screwed this up. I really need to do it again. And they relented and they let him start it over.
Wow.
But that's the only incident that I've ever heard of where they let an artist restart a song.
I remember one incident here a while back, several years ago on the Music Awards when Brooks and Dunn were performing and the cow deflated or whatever and fell on the drummer. I remember that, but that was a live show. I mean, they couldn't stop it. He continued to play, and that was, you know, they went on. But it's amazing how, I mean, I've worked my share, played my share of TV shows, and I was in, you know, but I tried out for different, you know, back in the day when I was younger, I tried out for different. Well, it's like American Idol now, but there were different television shows, and everything had to be tracked. I was live, but as far as my singing goes, but I had to have backing tracks. There was no other way to do it, and it was just so that was kind of disappointing to see. And I mean, people just don't know all the things that goes on behind music. Sometimes it's just crazy to.
Hey, John, I want to ask you because we gotta get going and wrapping up this interview. You're a drummer. We just talked about record labels not signing anymore. It's really not the American dream the way that it used to be in like the 2000s, early 2000s, 90s, 80s, 70s, etc. let's say there's a drummer out there, right? Or a musician of some kind, and they want to
Mhm.
make it in the music industry. They want to be signed by a label, or they at least want to play with these big bands
Yeah.
that are, or established recording artists. What's the advice as a veteran and a bona fide rock star in your career that you can give those aspiring musicians that want to do what you've done?
Well, the first thing is to be prepared. Um, study, practice, learn different styles. You never know what you're going to be called to play. Um, it used to be, I heard Larry London told me, he said, these guys come in here from LA, and he said, now in LA, you'll get called to play one kind of music. So you get a rock drummer, he's going to get called to play rock. You get a jazz drummer, he's going to get called to play jazz. He said, in Nashville, you could get called to play anything. And he said, and I see these guys come in from LA, with the attitude of, I'm going to take over this town in 2 weeks, and he said 2 weeks later, they're slinking back through the door going, how do I get a job in this town? And, Larry said, first of all, be prepared to play any style of music, learn those styles of music. And he said, throw your chops right out the window. He said, this town is all about time and groove. That's it.
That's a famous line from Jeff Porcaro too.
Time and Groove. That is the title of your first book.
Time and groove. And that's the truth. Now, I would say, before COVID, you could move to Nashville. You could get a job playing on Broadway, because Broadway was going, 3 shifts down there with musicians playing. I knew a lot of people that were earning a living doing that. Now, not so much. But when things get back to normal, I believe that Nashville is still the place to be. I think that most of the touring artists are coming out of here now. I don't really know what's going on in the pop side or what's going on in LA.
They're trying to move to Nashville, if you really want to know.
Well, I know a lot of them are moving to Nashville, and
yeah.
I'm shocked at the people I'm finding out who now live here.
Yeah.
So Nashville is Mecca as far as that goes.
Yeah.
You people will be able to work. This will go back to normal. Broadway will open up again. There'll be all kinds of opportunities for you to play and to learn and to network. And networking is key. But you know what? If you don't want to play wagon wheel, if you feel like you're above playing wagon wheel and some other stuff, then this is not the place for you to be.
I happen to love that song a lot.
I've heard so many drummers say that.
This is not the place to be, because you're going to have to play popular songs that people want to hear and that people want to dance to.
I've heard so many people say that. I've heard Kent Slooker say it. I've heard Richard Edmonds say it. I've heard Keith Rainwater say it. Now you're saying it. And the main key is definitely you have to have an open mind about playing in Nashville, because there is a lot. I mean, I played down on the Music Row area, down in the downtown Nashville, Tootsie's and Corner, and many across from the Ryman, and many places. And it's not just musicians who aren't famous. I mean, Martina McBride, steel guitar player, was there. I saw Sammy Kershaw, Lori Morgan's drummer, there. I mean, the people go in, these drummers like you, they decide they want to go in and just improve on their chops and play music, and they go in and they sit in and they play. And and down in Nashville, in downtown Nashville, you work for tips. You don't get a regular pay. You don't work for the door. People come up and they throw money in your tip jar, and the band splits the tips. That's how they get paid down there. But it's a great way to, if you're going to Nashville, get in there and start networking in that area and get to be known, because there's a lot of players who record records in there, who work, playing drums or playing steel or playing fiddle or playing guitar or playing bass or whatever. And they go and they play in downtown Nashville to keep their chops up. And then they go and it's not about
Steve Gadd said, all the chops in the world don't mean anything if you can't play a backbeat.
Exactly.
So, and Steve Gadd's got all the chops in the world.
Right.
But
Well,
yet he can play a 2-4 like nobody else.
well, like you said, time and groove was the main thing. Jeff Porcaro was all about time and groove. He didn't really, he wasn't flashy. He played a nice, that's why he played over thousands of songs. I mean,
Sure.
people do these kind of things and they're not flashy. They go in there and they do a job that they make it sound smooth and groovy and get that feel where you're just, you're grooving along.
And, I've never heard, I've heard Simon Phillips play
Oh my God.
Rosanna. I've heard Shannon play, nobody has ever played Rosanna like Jeff.
Right.
No one's ever played.
That,
Shannon came real close.
Simon Phillips is pretty bomb drummer, though, I have to admit.
Simon's a hell of a drummer. He actually one time, the time I met him, we were opening for Vince Gill. We were at Universal Amphitheater, and after our set, if you ever been to Universal Amphitheater, it's mostly outdoors.
Right.
And we're backstage is outdoors, and I see our manager waving frantically at me, to come over. And so I go over and I get closer and I realize that he's with Simon Phillips.
Wow.
And, he said, John, he's just Simon Phillips. I said, were you out there the whole time? Simon said, yeah. And I said, I'm really glad I didn't know that.
That would be me.
But you know what? He loved the band. He was very complimentary. He said, my wife dragged me out to this thing. And he said, I usually don't go out to see bands. He said, because I don't like a lot of them, And he said, I thought, oh my God, this is going to be a waste of time. He said, well, you guys, he said, I really like you guys. He said, you're really good. And that was a huge compliment coming from Simon Phillips.
Well, that's awesome. I've seen, if you've seen some of the stuff that Simon Phillips has done with there's a Japanese artist that he plays with. I can't remember her name at the moment, but man, it's just phenomenal. It's all the time and everything else. Another great drummer, I think is a good drummer, but again, not Jeff Porcaro for sure. It's Keith Carlock. He played with Steely Dan and he played with Toto, but he never did create that Rosanna shuffle. Like there's just nobody.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. To me, I've always been, and people don't. People talk about John Bonham and they talk about Neil Peart. And they talk about, these artists that are huge. They love them, these drummers. Yeah. But, to me, and they don't mention Jeff Porcaro for some reason. I don't know why. He's just not prominent in the rock and roll field. But if they only knew how much how big and how powerful he was and how much influence he had on music.
Yeah.
Hal Blaine, same way. Hal Blaine was just a phenomenal drummer.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. The Wrecking Crew was unbelievable.
The Wrecking Crew, yes.
Carol Kay just posted today the list of all of the movie soundtracks, just the movie soundtracks that she played on. And I keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and it's alphabetical, and it's like going and going and going, and I didn't get past the letter D, in her soundtracks.
Right.
But the Wrecking Crew played on everything, every hit record in the 1960s and early 70s was more than likely the Wrecking Crew.
Exactly. I mean, we did a show. We did the movie that came out, the Wrecking Crew movie. My band, my former band, the Working Poets, we did a show with the Wrecking Crew, and that was a lot of fun. There was a few of them that weren't there, but we had June Lockhart there, and they had a big interview. This was up in Lake Arrowhead, and it was just it was just amazing to meet these people and how talented and how Don Peake was there, and he showed us the guitar licks to "Let's Get It On," and Don Randy was there playing the piano. I mean, these guys are just amazing. And Denny Tedesco, his son was the guy who put all this together, and it was just. These guys, you just have no idea. The difference between being a live musician and being a recorded musician is like night and day.
Yeah.
It's just night and day.
Sure is.
So, and you obviously were one of the lucky guys who got to be in both worlds, though, with Restless Heart, because you replayed the drums. You actually played the drums on the records.
Oh, yes. Uh-huh. Yeah, I did.
And a lot of people, you mentioned Larry London, who was one of the biggest drummers in Nashville ever. Eddie Bears also. These guys are huge studio drummers. As I said, Rich Redmond. These
Oh, yeah.
guys are huge studio drummers, and they're called for everything.
Yeah.
And, to be someone like you, because, Mark Herndon didn't play with Alabama on the records. He played,
Right.
live, but he
Yeah.
didn't,
Yeah.
so for you to be the person you are, play the real hits on the albums and on the live, that's just amazing,
Yeah. Brad Paisley uses his live band on his records. He said, if they're good enough to play live with me, they're good enough to play on my records. And I applaud him for that.
That's good.
A lot of people say that, when they go to a concert, they want to make sure it's what they heard on the CD or, on their iPod or their iPhone or Spotify or whatever they're listening to now. So, the guy that did the drums, did the fiddle in the studio, hopefully it's the same person that's doing it live.
Yeah. Well, I know Brad uses his band. Of course, the Diamond Rio guys have always played on all of their records. Exile, those guys always played on their
Now,
records.
I know back in the day, Shania Twain used to use her live band doing studio stuff. I know that because I was obsessed. So I've seen everything.
Yeah. Mutt Lange, who produced, oh my God, Michael Bolton, AC/DC, and on and on.
Def Leppard were the main ones.
Oh, Def Leppard. Yeah, that was the big one. He was actually in the studio with us when we were recording When She Cries at Woodland Sound Studios in East Nashville. RCA came to us and said, look, Mutt Lange coming to town. He's doing research on how you make records in Nashville. So, okay, cool. So he said, we're going to send them to you.
What year was this?
Oh, this was When She Cries was recorded in 93.
He was doing research for Shania's second album, The Woman in Me. That's what he was doing.
That's exactly what he was doing. And he sat there and we were sitting. I remember we were sitting out in the hallway on the sofas and stuff, having coffee or something. And I think VH1 was up on the TV.
And it was a Tuesday.
Yeah, it was a Tuesday. All of a sudden, Def Leppard comes on VH1, and they're doing "Let's Get Rocked," and so, I told Mutt, I said, man, that's one of my favorite Def Leppard songs, "Let's Get Rocked," and I said, Joe's voice in the beginning just doesn't sound quite the same. Well, Mutt could mimic. He sounded so different on the Shania records, than he did on some other background vocals that he used to do. So he said, the guys were out on the road when I wrote this song. And he said, I just went ahead in the studio and did everything myself. I did all the parts myself. It was all Mutt Lange. He played everything on the record and sang everything on the record.
That's awesome.
Andrew, I want to show you here, since you're into fashion, this gentleman right here.
Yeah.
You can see this guy right here.
Let's see. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
With the mustache?
With a mustache right here on the end.
That's
I can't see it on my computer.
I see it right there, yeah.
That's what I used to look like.
Oh, wow.
You were a tall, lanky young man with long hair. And you still got the mustache. Now you got the little goatee happening.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking about getting rid of that.
Prominent album, the very first album ever right there. Restless
Heart. Actually, the first album was called Restless Heart. It was an EP. It only had 8 songs on it.
Right.
Oh wow.
Wheels was actually the second album that we did.
You didn't wear a cowboy hat in this album.
Fast Moving Train. No, I never wore.
It's one of the biggest records here. It had Dancy's Dream and Fast Moving Train. Sweet Auburn's on there. You had quite a few singles from that one as well, and we lots of great. That's the two.
Well, when you write Time and Groove, the book, we're gonna have to get you back on the show here to talk about it. I feel like this amazing interview, we barely have grazed the surface of your amazingly impressive career in the music industry. I really, really do feel that.
Well, I've got a lot of stories.
Yeah.
So would you come back and tell us more sometime?
I sure will. Would love to.
We'll have to check in as soon as we get through more of this COVID hot mess. Maybe in the summertime we'll bring you on for like season 3 or something.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen,
you're gonna have to bring recipes, right? So just make sure you practice your stuff in the meantime, so we can talk about your new food creations by that point.
We should do that. A cooking with John Dittrich. That would be good.
I'll do a paella.
There we go.
And we'll have him on here. It'll be a great episode. That'd be pretty fun, actually.
Yeah,
actually pretty fun. John, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you and how much it's been nice having you as a friend these years. And just I'm just a, like I said, very humble, nice gentleman. I know that your wife probably wants you to take the trash out right now because I know it's just keeping you that way. But I think he got stuck. Oh, there he is. There he kind of stuck for a second. But I appreciate
my wife in the kitchen, and she heard that.
Yeah.
She's like, "That's not a bad idea."
Take out the trash, John.
Yeah.
But yeah, we appreciate. Is that your dog, Andrew?
No, it's definitely not my dog.
There we go. We have 2 Yorkies. They're brothers from the same litter, different as day and night. I can't get on the telephone without them starting to bark about something.
They need attention.
Be quiet all day. My wife's had them back in the back of the house. That's why they haven't been barking.
Well, we appreciate her for doing that. And of course, it's not a big deal because this is a podcast and we're just having a good time here. So whatever is most natural is great. But I'm very thrilled to have you on. I'm very thrilled that we touched base and got this on today because it's going to be something that I will cherish for the rest of my life, especially having you on and being I was telling Andrew at the very beginning, I idolize you very much. I've learned a lot from you too as well, and thank you for everything that you've done and the music that you've given us.
And just know that if you were Shania Twain, this would be a 4-hour podcast. Just
yeah.
So you know.
Hey guys, I've really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me, Andrew, Kevin. Let's do this again sometime.
Absolutely. All right. You can get off, John, and we're gonna finish off our show, just the 2 of us.
Okay. All right. Take care. Thanks.
Take care. God bless.
Be safe.
Bye. You too.
So there it is, Kevin.
I know, man. What can you say?
That's awesome. So who do you got next week for us? Luke Bryan, Brad Paisley, what's going on?
I think we're gonna do. I don't know, man. What do you think we should do? I don't know.
I just feel like if people are still with us on this podcast, we're gonna get a lot of hits and downloads on this one.
Of course, yes. People know who. Everybody knows who Restless Heart is.
Now, I wasn't a fan of Restless Hearts because it obviously is before my generation, and I wasn't into like early 90s country, right? But I know who they are. I've heard their music and I acknowledge their music. And I mean, that's as good as it gets. I mean, if you break down bands like from that era, Diamond Rio and Restless Heart that are still together and still doing stuff. I mean, that's everybody knows who those people are. That's huge.
Of course, John is retiring now, of course, but man, there's Restless Heart is still going to be out there. Larry and all those guys are still going to be out there, and that's going to be a great show because Chris Golden, as John told me yesterday when I was talking to him privately, Chris filled in for him. John had back surgery several years ago, and Chris Golden filled in with him, and Chris knows the book. I mean, they go back out and start playing right away, and that's the thing. We were talking about musicians. If you want to be a real musician in Nashville or anywhere, you need to know, you need to study, you need to learn, and you need to be able to walk right in and play because there's not much time to be able.
And word to the wise, do your research on how it used to be in the industry and how these people got to where they are, and then identify what's different now, because the way they did things, it's not like that anymore. But you have to understand how they got there so you can find your own story and your own path. That's super important to know, and so many don't know that. I think we've talked about it before on the show about kids and social media. They want to be famous. They just, and they sing or they play a guitar, but they just don't know how to do it. They literally have like 10 million likes or 10 million followers, and they just don't know how to turn that key to become mainstream or professional,
And one thing you also have to remember too, Andrew, and this is for anybody. I mean, John's been around for a long time. He started in 1984 and this is 2021. And, here's the thing. you probably will never have a career like that, like Diamond Rio, like,
Those type of
Alabama.
careers don't exist anymore.
You just won't. I mean, today a lot of artists, like he said, there's singles. They want to get people there. They'll do a trio once in a while, but basically it's a single or a duo now, and they have a backing band, and they have and they have sometimes it's a trio, like maybe like Lady Antebellum. There's three in Lady Antebellum, right. Or is there four? There's three. Lady Antebellum, and then Little Big Town's not even a band. Little Big Town is four people, but they have a backing band.
And as far as music artists go, I'll give you an example. Okay, you know who was famous enough that they got discovered off of MySpace? Taylor Swift. Can you name another? You probably can't, right? Let's look at YouTube. Okay, Justin Bieber. Well, who else? Yeah,
that's pretty.
It's, and that's like the biggest platform. You think you're going to get discovered there, and you might make some money off of it, but we're talking longevity. Okay, Restless Heart, they have longevity. They have decades of longevity of success in their career. That's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about a quick dash to the finish. If that's what you're looking for, then keep up doing whatever it is that you're doing, but we're talking about something that you can actually have a career off of. Well, it's far and few, even with the power of social media.
Right. It's the way it is. And these guys have not had it easy. They've worked all over the country and all over the world, and they've this is what they do for a living, and it's a job. It's not like it is fun, and you have it in your blood, and yes, we want every musician wants it as well as you're a singer. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to. It feels good to get out in front of people and sing, and like we're doing the podcast, we do this because we like doing it. It's not like. It's a job for us, though. There's a lot of behind the scenes. We discussed that too.
That's right.
So you have to realize that you can't. You're going to have ups and downs, and you might be able to play music forever, but you won't have it. And you might even have your 15 minutes of fame, but it won't be. It's very rare that it lasts that long.
That's right. And this is why I no longer do ACTV the way that I used to, because there's just no way I can make it work now.
But it's good to still be a part of that. And as you heard, John played, Ed Shaughnessy was his teacher. Oh my gosh. Ed Shaughnessy, the drummer for the Night Show Band. I mean, come on. These guys are, how more could you ask for than that? I mean,
yes. Bruce Springsteen will be on next week, by the way. I'm just kidding. Unless Bruce calls us, we'll do it.
The boss.
Hey, everybody, you can subscribe to us. If you didn't know, we have just audio only versions if you're in your car driving around. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, Amazon Alexa. You can listen on Google Podcasts or Apple Podcasts. Keyword Kevin and Andrew. We're the only Kevin and Andrew that have a podcast, so you just have to type in Kevin and Andrew, and the rest of it will come up. You can also subscribe and follow our episodes if you want the video version of this show on YouTube or Facebook Watch. Keyword Kevin and Andrew. If you're old school and you still use this thing called a desktop or a Mac computer at home, you can go to facebook.com/the best podcast ever. And no joke, that's us. Kevin and Andrew have a podcast.
And one other thing I want to say about the video versions, we have the audio version already on my website, which is Kevin O'Neill, ONEAL, soundlabs.com. Kevin O'Neill, soundlabs.com, one word. And then, I'm now uploading the video versions as well. So we'll have the video version and the audio version for you. You'll be able to go to that website and see both the video and audio versions of your choice.
That is exciting.
It's going to be good. It's been working on it, been trying to update that and get it on. So Kevin O'Neill, soundlabs.com. That's O'Neill, ONEAL. And of course, the best podcast ever.
On social media, if you need to moan and groan and complain about me, simply handle On Air Andrew. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. For Facebook, Kevin is L4 Monty.
That's capital L, the number 4, MONTY.
L for love, because we love Kevin O'Neill, right?
Some people don't think so, but oh well, whatever.
Or L for lies, dirty
Andrew,
lies.
I'm glad you could make it today.
I know. And the coffee got me
man.
through it. I've been so busy. I'm all over the map right now, but it's okay. I
want to say one last thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Last thing. I want to say to my friend, I had a very I wrote songs years and years and years with a gentleman named David Short, and unfortunately he passed away a couple of days ago with a heart attack, and I'm very sad about that. His funeral is tomorrow. Of course, this episode will be later, but I did want to acknowledge that 40 songs we wrote, maybe even more than that. We're still kind of looking around to find more songs that we had a lot of time musically wise, and it was great to be able to be a songwriter with him, and I have all the songs, and I cherish those songs every day. And I hope he rests in peace. God bless you, Dave Short, and the Short family. They've had a rough year in 2020. Judy Short, his mom lost her sister, and David's father passed away. He was 80 years old. He passed away in November. And then, of course, David passes a couple of days ago. So God bless that family, too. I hope everybody's safe and sound in that family and can, be blessed by God during this time.
Sorry to hear.
Not to bring it down, but I'm just saying,
right.
He was a great songwriter, musician, and singer, and I will dearly miss him because we hadn't really wrote quite some time, but it was I still cherish a lot of stuff that we did with him. So that was
that's important. When I lost, I think we mentioned it here last season. When I lost my friend Chris Truesdale to COVID back in June. Yeah, I did a dedication song to him and was there during his memorial service, which was done on Zoom.
Right.
So
what I'll be doing tomorrow.
Yeah, so it's important. So thank you for sharing that with us and letting us know a little bit about your lifelong songwriting partner there.
Right. All right. Kevin and Andrew have a podcast. We'll see you next week. We do have a guest already for next week. It's going to be a return guest who will be a lot of fun to be here.
Oh, we'll tell you more then. So just follow us on Facebook. I'm Andrew Caravella. Later.
And I'm Kevin O'Neill. God bless you. Take care. Be safe. And see you later. Bye.
Kevin and Andrew Have a Podcast has been made possible by Kevin O'Neill Sound Labs. If you're an independent singer or songwriter and you want to be on the show, you can always email us at koacpodcast@gmail.com. Make sure to subscribe and follow on YouTube and Facebook, keyword Kevin and Andrew Have a Podcast. You can always subscribe to the audio-only version at iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, Amazon Alexa, or Google and Apple Podcasts. I'm Andrew Caravella. We'll see you next time. Later.